Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Hello, everyone. It's Kate, and today we're going to dive into the business side of the craft of coaching. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background into today's episode. Some of you who have been longtime listeners might know that the Courageous Living Coach certification includes marketing training as part of our program. And we do that because if you're going to be a coach and you want to find clients, you're necessarily going to need to know how to find clients. And in particular, a big thing that we want to do as a program is make sure that you know how to find clients and market yourself in ways that feel authentic to you. And that is where programs such as the Coaching Blueprint digital marketing program come in. And if you have not heard of that program, you can find it at coachingblueprintprogram.com. But one thing that we are going to be introducing with our next cohort of CLCC, and we've already given access to this to our alumni, is a course on business operations. There's a lot of people who come into being a coach who don't have a lot of experience with actually running a business. And marketing is part of business operations, but it's not all of business operations. So today I'm going to be talking to you about some of the essential functions that you need to be thinking about for your business's operations, as in running this business thing day to day. And so, like I said, the next cohort of Team CLCC will be getting this business operations training as part of their training with CLCC. We are additionally extending that training out to all of our alumni, which is really exciting as well, because we want to continuously support the development of our alumni in every single way. We do continuing education around craft of coaching types of topics, how to continue to innovate as a coach, how to handle clients who have a specific type of challenge coming up in their lives. But we also want to make sure that we get in there with that business marketing side of things. So we're going to get into business operations today. Before I get into what business operations are, I'll just let you know that the program that I'm rolling out is called Biz Ops for Busy People, and you can find it at teamclcc.com/operations. That's teamclcc.com/operations. And again, the name of the program is Biz Ops for Busy People. And it was created with the type of coach that I personally was when I first started my coaching practice, that pretty much every other coach I've ever met is when they first start out, which is to say a busy person, somebody who is not necessarily independently wealthy and becoming a coach, and they just can automatically go out and hire all their service providers and things like that to handle their scheduling or their invoicing or whatever other business operations need to be handled. That is not how most coaches start out. I have yet to actually meet a coach who is in that fortunate of a position. And so, hey, you need to know about business operations, but you also need to know how to get those operations handled in a way that is efficient, because you just don't have a ton of time. I get it. I have lived it. I have bounced a newborn baby on one hip while I'm leaving messages for someone who's part of my team with my free hand. And I have absolutely, been posting things to social media in between lunch breaks when I was working a salaried job, all the things. I've been there. I know a lot of coaches have. So streamlining your business operations Hugely important for not getting burned out and, of course, for having a successful business, one that is attracting clients, one where you can scale what you're doing. And that is, of course, pretty important so that you don't remain stagnant at just one level and you're able to grow your business. So let's get into what business operations are, because for some people, you might not be very familiar with that term. So I'm just going to give you like a simplistic overview of business operations. It is all of the things you need to do, the activities, the protocols, the procedures that your business needs to get handled in order to create, to deliver your services, your products, if you've added those as well. So in coaching, services are, of course, the actual one-on-one sessions, any group coaching meetings that you're holding, things of that nature. Products might be things like a digital download, a video series that is behind a paywall. So business operations are all the things you need to do to create and deliver those products and services. Marketing is one of the branches of business operations, but it is not the only one. So the Coaching Blueprint program is solely focused on marketing. There is a segment of the program that is about how to get things done. In particular, I talk about my model for getting content creation in particular down to about 4 hours a week. But the BizOps for Busy People program really gets into more detail with that. So what are all the things that you need to do in order to manage your business's operations? So let's get started with, first of all, what are the different pieces of business operations? What are the different, I call them domains? One of the domains is, of course, marketing. Another one is selling. Think about that for a minute. A lot of times people conflate the two, but they're a little bit different. Marketing is you pushing your message out there. Selling is, okay, your message has been received. Someone may or may not be interested. They might have some objections. They might not be ready. Selling is how you let them know, like, oh, okay, I see you have this objection. Here's a potential benefit to taking action now rather than waiting for later. Or here's something that's coming up for you that you really, really, really need to see as part of this product or service that I'm offering. And I would like to have that sales conversation with you to let you know that it is or is not included so that you know what you're getting when you sign up for this product or service. So when you market to someone, absolutely on a sales page, you are selling to them. That's why it's called a sales page. But selling is going to be more in the domain of, do you know what your sales process is? When you do outreach of any kind, are you doing effective outreach? When you are on social media, do you have a sales mindset or a water cooler mindset? And those are two very different mindsets. So again, first domain is going to be marketing, and it's all the things that you would expect. It's going to be content creation and your message and getting that out onto usually social media. The next domain is going to be selling, and that's how you're actually having conversations with people who are considering buying your product or service and knowing what your sales process is and what the customer journey is and how you're meeting needs for your customer and in terms of selling to them along that journey. The next domain is fulfillment. That's the actual fulfillment of the product or service that you sold. So they've signed on the dotted line and now you have to fulfill that product. And you might think to yourself, well, that doesn't seem very detailed. Like, what would be an issue with fulfillment? Client signs up for sessions with me. I hold the session. We have fulfilled it. But for coaches, I would definitely say you want to think about what your boundaries are and you want to assess your risks to fulfillment. And there are risks. I have absolutely met coaches who had the champagne problem of getting a lot of attention and scaling really, really fast, and it quickly led to burnout. I know coaches who have quit because they were too successful. That sounds like an impossible thing when you're first starting out as a coach. Who could be too successful? but the pressure that comes with a lot of attention or scaling really fast, it's a new sensation for people, and they don't always know how to adjust to it. The next domain would be product. And this is about assessing how well your product actually delivers, and also making sure that you're innovating and developing new products. So your quote unquote product could be, like I said, like digital downloads, e-courses, things like that. Your service, that would also be another example of one of the quote unquote products that you offer. So I tend to think of like a product as being more of a tangible thing, something that someone's going to interact with or do. The service as being something that you as a coach have to show up to actually provide. You have to provide the coaching. You have to provide the group, facilitation, things like that. Nonetheless, the domain of product in business operations is, how well am I already delivering? Are people happy with my digital downloads? Are they telling other people about it? Are people excited about any updates that I make? With coaching, how do I know as a coach that I'm making time for learning, that I'm continuing to refine my craft? And, I personally have had a one-on-one practice since 2006. I am the director of training for a coach training program. Sure, I know a lot, but I would never want to step into a space of being so arrogant as to think that there is not more that I could stand to learn. And I would always want to be someone who is looking at what's going on in the industry. How is it changing? How am I adapting? And purely from a place of continuing to find pleasure in this craft of coaching that you're probably already really excited about, you want to make sure that you're doing new and innovative things with your clients, but you want to do that from a data-driven, evidence-based perspective, not just wild, random experimentation that doesn't really serve the client and has no basis in actually being shown to be helpful. So there's a sense in which you as a coach are the quote-unquote product, and the digital downloads and tangible things that you put out there, it's how do I continuously improve those? How do I make sure people are satisfied with what I'm already delivering? And the same questions are there for your coaching. In business operations, the next domain would be business intelligence. That's what it's called in more modern terms, but data is really what we're talking about here. And I think data and the ability to make data-driven decisions is one of the most neglected aspects of running a coaching business. I mean, think about this for a minute. Most coaches, the way that they're operating, and this is not a criticism, this is just the reality of you're busy and it's new and there's a lot going on. But I'll paint this picture of most coaches when they're first starting out. They're usually transitioning from some kind of salary job. So they've already got a 9-to-5. They're coaching in the mornings before work or on their lunch hour or after work, sometimes slipping a session in the morning or the afternoon, and salary job isn't paying too much attention. And so this is what you're doing. And you're also trying to find some time to market what you do on some level, which usually involves a couple of social media posts on a couple of different channels. So you're doing all that. And there can be this sense when you're doing all that of, well, I just got to put something out there because something is better than nothing, but there's no strategy behind it that's data-driven. When you learn how to make data-driven decisions, or when you start leveraging what's called business intelligence, then you are evaluating your efforts so that you know what is working and what isn't. And that is a really important skill to learn early on, because when you know that skill, you are absolutely going to be able to be more efficient and you won't spend as much time on the things that just don't work. Next domain would be finance. So who is counting the beans? Who is looking at what it is that you are doing, where you're spending your money, things of that nature? And in Biz Ops for Busy People, I've got 12 simple questions to evaluate your finances. I also talk in that domain of the course a little bit about those big entrepreneurs, the ones who seem like they're really killing it when it comes to money. I'm going to give you a bit of a reframe around how to think about what you're seeing online, because sometimes it's like not the whole truth. Let's just say that. And then the last domain of business operations is personnel. And this is a module in BizOps for busy people that you will definitely find helpful when it is time for you to build out your team. How to define roles for your business, knowing when it's time to hire, tips on hiring, how to manage people. I also include a BizOps personnel canvas that you can use to fill out and start to get some clarity on the different roles in your business. Knowing what role to hire for first is pretty important. Knowing how to evaluate whether or not the person you hired is doing a great job is pretty important. So once again, we've got these different domains: marketing, selling, fulfillment, product, business intelligence or data, finance, and personnel. And all of those together are what create your business's operations. Business operations are incredibly important. You want to be, for instance, efficient. You don't have time to waste. You don't have resources to waste. You want to save as much as you can and be as productive as you can with the time that you have. And really, the biggest advantage of knowing your business's operations is that you don't start to flounder, flail, and then get burned out. I see signs that you need business operations help as things like when the tasks that you don't really want to do but that are necessary to do for your business start to crowd out the work you really love to do. If you are forgetting things constantly, if your sticky note system that clutters your desk is not a system and you're finally going, okay, this is madness. My desk is constantly littered with notes and to-do lists and things that I can't quite keep straight. If you're getting notifications about things that you need to do and it's stressing you out. If you're losing track of communication in your inbox, if you are sacrificing sleep because there just aren't enough hours in the day and you need to figure out how to streamline your business operations so that you aren't getting burned out. If you know that you're about to get burned out, then that's where it's like, okay, you need some business operations help to get focused on your most essential priorities, take care of your time, and start to really streamline all this stuff. And most coaches wait until they're on the verge of burnout, raising my hand here, was totally that person, before they get those sorts of things under control. So where would you start though? Let's say that you're like, okay, I might not be ready for business operations training or coursework at this time, but I at least want to try to get started, okay? There is one very, very, very important thing that you need to do first and foremost, and it is define your highest priority tasks. And I'm going to tell you, here's how we're going to get super simple. Your highest priority tasks are the tasks that get money in the door. Those are your highest priority tasks. So this is what I mean when I say that sometimes people are on social media with a sales orientation versus a water cooler orientation. If you know that chatting with people on social media with a sales orientation gets you money in the door, then great. It is a most important task. But if chatting with people on social media is just you hanging out water cooler style, that's not a high priority, most important task. Your highest priority, most important tasks are those that get money in the door because of this simple fact. If you aren't getting money in the door, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And I don't say that to be cruel or unkind. Especially want to add the caveat to what I just said to those who are just starting out. It takes time to develop a business. So if you're just a couple months into becoming a coach and you're like, oh, I don't have any clients, this must just be a hobby, I suck. No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you start to get going, when you've had a couple clients under your belt and you're actually moving in the direction of, okay, I've got a couple clients, now how do I get more? That's when it's like, okay, how are you going to get more? By focusing on your highest priority tasks. What are your most highest priority tasks? The ones that get the money in the door. Now, when you're first running your business, you might not really feel clear on what is truly going to get money in the door. But going through all of your business operations and making sure that you understand, okay, I know what my product or service is. I know what my value propositions are when I'm marketing. I know what my sales process is. I know how I'm evaluating the success of my product or service. I know how I'm fulfilling it in a way that delights the people that I work with and has them coming back for more. I'm using data to make decisions. I'm actually able to look at my business's operations and go, this is effective, and I have the data to show for it. This is not effective, and I don't have the data. Hopefully at this point you're seeing what I'm getting at, which is that when you go through your business operations, that's how you start to figure out what truly is most important or what is making money. So once again, where you start out is this. You have to focus on your highest priority tasks, and those are the ones that get money in the door. So let's get into some questions that you can ask yourself to assess for this. All right. So first one I've already asked a few different times in a few different ways, which is what gets clients in the door? What specific actions are what you need to do to get clients in the door? That could be, I run my podcast. That's where business is coming from. It could be, I write a very popular newsletter. That's where my business is coming from. It could be, I send proposals to organizations, to leaders at organizations, and that's where my money is coming from. So essentially, what gets clients in the door? Another way to explore this question is, how do people find out about you? How do people find out about you? If you can go to one networking event and 50 people are going to be knocking on your door to be your client, then if I was giving you strategic business advice, I would not say, oh, you know what? You need to get a whole social media campaign together. Because if you're able to go to one networking event and have 50 clients, I want you to go to more networking events. So how do people find out about you? If social media is how people find out about you, then great. Next question can be, how do you want to do more of that or scale that? How can you go to more networking events? Or how can you get the 50 people who are interested in what you do from that event to provide you with a referral or introduce you to a decision maker at another networking event or an organization where you might do a kind of hybrid spot coaching / class on a topic that matters to them. If you say, well, how people find out about me is via social media, then my questions would be, well, what would you like to do to scale that, to do more of that? Could you do something collaborative with people on social media? Could you run an ad campaign if that's something you'd like to do? And one of the things I talk about in Biz Ops for Busy People is the state of pay to play in 2024, because meta platforms, I am calling you out. Instagram, Facebook, it's gotten ridiculous. Nonetheless, people run ad campaigns and some people have success with them and enjoy that and feel like that's the best approach. Great. It doesn't matter what I think is the best approach for my business. This is about for your business. What is the highest priority task that gets money in the door? Okay. Once you have figured out what those tasks are, now you need to try to quantify them. What is the time it takes? If you are going to do podcast episodes, how much time does it take for you to record and produce that episode? If you are going to do cold calling, maybe if that's your approach, how much time does that take? If you're going to spend time on writing newsletters, how much time does that take? But again, you don't want to start assessing the time it takes for tasks that don't get money in the door. You want to just go, what are the ones that get the money in the door? Okay? And then once you have assessed the 3, 4, 5 tasks that you might do to get money in the door, you have to go, which one is most important? You got to prioritize, because one of these is more effective than the other. And once you know what the task is that is the most effective task, then it's time to maximize gains. So if you currently spend 1 hour on something that is your most important task, can you figure out a way to do more with that hour? Can you find time in your schedule to devote more time to that type of task so that you are able to do more of it? Those are the things that you're looking at. Now, of course, with all of this, there is such a thing as balance. Of course, with all of this, I am not saying that you're supposed to turn into a productivity machine. Of course, with all of this, I am not saying that you have to scale forever and it's capitalism and it's always about scaling and that. No. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that you have to step into being the leader that your business needs. And there is no successful business on the planet that someone has been running long term where it's just kind of like, I don't know. Who knows what I'll work on this quarter? We don't really have a plan for how we're going to get some new clients. We'll just see how it goes. No, that is actually not a recipe for success. So today I'm really focusing on what is business operations, what are the different domains of business operations, and then getting your attention centered on how to identify what your most important business operations task is. So hopefully you have found some time to grab a sheet of paper, pause this as needed, write out some answers to some of those questions. And of course, if you want the actual worksheets and videos and things that go with the BizOps course, just head over to teamclcc.com/operations. If you have any specific questions about business operations, how can I do this? Or what have you found to be effective with that? Head on to your email, send an email over to support@yourcourageouslife.com, and in the subject line, put craft of coaching question. And then in the body of your email, share your question with as much context as possible because I would love to include it on a future episode. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.